What really, enabled you to take that plunge and move out?
When I started getting into spirituality, I started analyzing what were my stressors. The only thing that by 2008, 9, 3, 4 years of spiritual practice, what held me was that spirit. What is the most misunderstood thing about well being is that we tend to think that it is something that we have to do, but it's not something we have to do. It is something we have to be.
What is a truly effective well-being strategy in your view?
Understand is that we are the body, mind, and spirit.
HR has to also be answerable to the board about the profitability, the impact of the activities being done. What would be your response to an HR around that?
Because HRs want to be on the boards and HRs want to have a voice that truly drives the organization long term. Multiple tactics don't make a strategy, but a strategy to build a conscious culture will lead to multiple tactics that are aligned.
Listeners, we all have been at a place where we have been stressed, anxious, and this has been a topic which we have also discussed in some of our previous episodes with different speakers. But today we have somebody who has been through different phases of his life and today is enabling people to manage their stress better with a concept that he himself has coined and is working on building a whole ecosystem around it. So welcome to another episode of We Are Listening, the podcast where we bridge the gap between wellness seekers and wellness providers. I'm your host, Pulkit Garg, founder of Anya Wellness, and today we are diving deep into a conversation that's going to challenge everything you think you know about wellness, consciousness, and healing. Joining us is someone who doesn't talk about transformation, he embodies it. Sandeep Nath is the founder of the Renewalism Movement, an IIT-IIM alumnus who left a successful strategy consulting firm behind to explore the wisdom of the Himalayas. I believe a lot of us have often thought in our own lives that let's retire and go to Himalayas. So, Sandeep, we are going to be looking forward to hearing some amazing stories that you would have experienced in the Himalayas. Why don't you introduce yourself further and share some anecdotes from your Himalayan journey?
Himalayan journey. That's a nice way of putting it, Pulkit. Thank you. Yes, listeners, I wish you all have wonderful Himalayan journeys because that is what life is about. Going to the top of wherever you are. And for me, I was stuck right at the bottom of where I was. I was, I'd done the IIT, I'd done the IIM, and I got to a point where I had whatever it took to be called successful, like the car and the house and all that. But I was wondering whether I'm on a track where we're creating more problems for the world than we're solving. And that Pulkit was actually what was gnawing at me. That was my stress point because I didn't have a solution, but I certainly knew I didn't want to be part of the problem. So what does one do? One looks outside for, outside whatever one knows. And I found that all these traditional education hadn't given me answers. So who's going to give that to me? That took me to the realms of spirituality. And eventually in 2010, I handed my company over to the other directors and I headed out to the Himalayas on a one-way ticket. So that started the journey. And then, of course, to talk of anecdotes, during that journey, it was the place where I met my wife in a monastery, for God's sake.
Wow.
And we were both embracing Tibetan Buddhism around the same time and as a life philosophy, from where a lot of today's conversation has emanated. So let's get on with some questions that you warned me about. Well, what can I answer for you? But
Surely, surely. That's a really, amazing and inspiring journey that you shared about. Let's discuss the, very pressing question or the elephant in the room, Sandeep, which a lot of senior corporate leaders often procrastinate about, but fear taking the action you were able to take,
Mhm.
up everything and moving to Himalayas to find your calling, finding that
Mhm.
Tibetan, monastery, following Buddhism. Depending on the stage of the life we all are at, a lot of responsibilities and accountabilities comes onto us, and often more than the I would say accountability factor, we are in a fear zone where we don't want to leave the accountabilities and responsibilities, often putting the onus on those responsibilities and not taking the required actions to get out of that cumbersome space we all are in, that
Correct.
crumbed up space we all find our inner souls in. Is it
Correct.
that you're living like a robot, living like a machine? And for senior corporate leaders, it's a clockwork that goes on. What really, enabled you to take that plunge and move out?
What I did way back in 2008 9 was started analyzing. In fact, even earlier than that, around 2005, when I started getting into spirituality, I started analyzing what were my stressors. And by about 2008 9, I had a stress matrix developed on the six dimensions of well being, which have to do with body, mind, spirit, which is what we are constituted of. And along with the body are our physical relationships, so social. Along with the mind are our financial pressures, so financial. And the spirit is, relates to our emotional well being, so the emotional parameters. And when any of you do the assessment, the self assessment, honestly, on the stress metrics, and I'll be happy to share a downloadable version of that. We'll put the link in the description, Pulkit. I did that and I found how imbalanced my life was. In fact, out of the six dimensions, five were totally wonky. The only thing that by 2008, 9, 3, 4 years of spiritual practice, what held me was that spirit. And therefore, in 2010, when I was nudged to explore with the Tibetans, because they've done a lot of work, 1,000 years of meditation practically on energy and what drives us, and they've demonstrated that energy can move you physically and mentally, the way they moved en masse from China with all that problem that they were having. I would believe that holding on to your positions in the stress matrix and expanding on them would be the first step in clearing out your life practically. For me, I had to clear out my life by seeing where my existing marriage was. I mentioned that I met my wife in the monasteries. Well, I was already married, very
Mhm.
amicably divorced before I set out. And the amicable divorce happened because of the strength of the spiritual connection and sorting out other things in the financial department, in the emotional department, and I guess also in the social department. So, so doing that, then a lot of you have families, you have kids, you've got to prepare financially. Now that's another very important area where apart from the emotional and financial support that you give them, or rather, when you give them the emotional and financial support, your physical support can be a little laid back because they know you're safe, they know what you're doing, and they know why you're doing it. But that's not a source of tension for them. So planning that way emotionally and financially is very important, because then you can take that step of physically pursuing your calling, whether the calling is in a world travel trip, or it is in go to the Himalayas, or it is any other place.
Understood.
So that's kind of my first piece of advice. Find out where you are on the stress matrix.
Amazing. That's a lot of homework that you did, Sandeep, at your end before you took that plunge. I also believe that a lot of work needs to be done internally before we start our soul searching in the external world out there. And over the years in my entrepreneurial journey, there have been different milestones which have made me aware of different aspects I needed to look into. I'm still evolving, still learning a lot of things. One thing that has been constant is more than the outside, it's what goes inside. How you are able to manage things, how well you know yourself, because there are instances where people have gone outside in the soul search, and they've come back the same, a little better, but not yet where they wanted to be. And my personal belief is the lot of inner work was missing out there.
Mhm. I
Uh,
agree with you.
so one thing I would like to understand from you, Sandeep, with so much happening in today's world around wellness, self work, self love. What's that one misunderstanding or misunderstood idea around this concept of wellness that we people in corporates have been just fancying about rather than the real work?
What is the most misunderstood thing about well-being is that we tend to think that it is something that we have to do, but it's not something we have to do. It is something we have to be. You see, your well-being is well-being because it's not well-doing. But the way we think of it, we have to do that half an hour walk. We have to do those 10,000 steps. We have to do that yoga practice. In fact, one of my recent students, she said that I do my affirmation, no, my gratitude practice. I practice gratitude every morning. So I said, well, honey, it's not a tick box item. It's an attitude of gratitude that you embrace. So when we're talking about a holistic well-being over here, what's really missing is our understanding of it. We tend to understand it like, let's say, to give a metaphor, like a car. Okay, so there are three parts to the car: the physical vehicle, that you could say is the body, and the person who drives it, that is you, the person, the mind. Okay, so if the mind is not in the body is not going anywhere, right? The mind gets into the body, then there's a possibility to drive. And the third aspect is spirit. Like I just said, we constitute of three things. Now generally we think we're only two, we're only mind and body, and that's another big fallacy. Spirit is probably the most important. Now, where does spirit come from? Spirit comes from our connection around. So, what you just said, which was about working on the inside. I always have that concept where the line is your inner power defines your outer reality. So, what you are inside will define how things happen in your environment. And that connection happens through spirit, the outer spirit and the inner spirit, which drive. Now, we take well being or wellness as a part of the car. We are in the car. So, let's say the seat is raggedy, all right? The dog has been crapping on it, and all sorts of things are happening. The springs have come out, whatever has happened in the car. And we say, okay, the seat is not a priority. We'll take care of it when it comes. Now, that seat is something like that nagging headache that we keep getting, right? We'll take care of it. There are more important things to do. Or that seat is like that lose motions twice a month or something like that. And it doesn't bother us. But then there are other things in the car that go wrong, which are like with the engine, right? So suddenly you have high blood pressure and you're running to a doctor, you're taking an ECG, you're doing all sorts of things, and your sense of well-being is challenged, but you are putting it on the front burner for a while, but you're not addressing the real issue. The issue is not with the parts of the car, whether you prioritize or don't prioritize. The issue is whether the third part of what's coming from outside is driving you correctly or not. And that is stuff like your fuel, stuff like your engine oil. Now you run out of engine oil, you are out. Now it's not part of the car, but you've got to make sure that you are connected with that. Your tires are connected with the right pressure. So you've got to keep filling that air in the tires. And that is your spirit connection inside and outside, which moves the vehicle. Otherwise, you got you with all the intent, you got a damn good car, but there's no petrol, or the tires are flat, or the engine oil is not there, you're not going anywhere. So instead of doing those things within the car to make sure everything is looking spick and span, is a very misunderstood aspect of what well being really is. It is about aligning the mind, body, and spirit and ensuring that the spirit is proper. I mean, if you get the wrong fuel, again, you're not going anywhere. You've got to diesel car and you put petrol or kerosene, you're not going anywhere. So that's what's important to understand. And unfortunately, like this new student of mine who's saying, I do those tick boxes, most of that thinking is coming from our corporates, where all of well-being is a tick box. You've got these check boxes that we've done the meditation this month, we've done the yoga the next month, we've done the gratitude session. That's not how you create well-being. That's not looking at well-being holistically. So that again, from a corporate perspective, is very, very misunderstood on what the methodology of imbibing what I would call a culture of well-being would really be like.
I agree. I totally agree with you, Sandeep, on this. Having worked with a plethora of corporates out there, it's just a tick box activity for most of them. In my 5-year journey, where we were actively pursuing Anya Wellness as a startup in the employee wellness space, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I came across very few companies who actually, really took the accountability of their employees' wellness and really walked the talk. Uh, but I believe this whole notion where within the corporates it has become a tick box activity also is somewhere or other rooted in the way we as a society approach well-being or
Yep.
the wellness.
Well-doing.
Uh, So, one thing that happens with me a lot. I'm overweight in my body, and whenever I meet some of my people who are my well-wishers, I would put it that in that manner. They try to impose, strategies that worked for them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like the other day, somebody was like, "Pulkit, you should eat papaya for your dinner every day, and you will lose your weight." Or somebody
Mm-hmm.
comes and says, "Okay, start having this concoction in the morning. This will work."
Mm-hmm.
Now, without realizing what my life is all about or the what lifestyle I'm pursuing,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of free tips and advices that are shared across the board.
Correct.
But my personal belief is wellness is a personal journey to be navigated. Actions are required, yes. You should not just sit saying कि something's gonna just come like a light bulb moment to me, and that's when I will start my well-being journey or my wellness journey. You constantly need to build onto different experiences with different modalities that are available, and find the one that really aligns with you. uh,
Right.
Having promoted natural healing for a very long time in my own journey, I've tried Ayurveda, I've tried naturopathy, I've tried yoga. Something that really aligns with me is yoga. I've been
Mm-hmm.
able to do it consistently. I tried gymming, I tried all the possible things out there. Now everything had its own pros as well as cons. Now with naturopathy, the naturopathy center I used to go to, the doctor did a fantabulous job in what 4 months time. He helped me lose 16 to 18 kgs. And
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling a little lighter. My bloating was gone. A lot of things were happening better. But that was a time where I was in a transition phase from Anya Wellness to the company that I'm running right now, the business I'm managing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of time with me where I could rest during the day, because after going through that therapy just probably just for 1.5 hours in the morning, but the rest that was required after it was nearly 7 to 8 hours, which now once I've started working again, I cannot afford. I have to go out for client meetings. I have to manage my team and everything. And every second day, I cannot be saying to my client that I cannot take a call. Give me 10 minutes. And while during the call, I again say, please allow me a bio break. I need to, go for the bio call. So that's where I had to leave naturopathy. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the place where I'm really looking forward to, get your consideration from is, what is a truly effective well-being strategy in your view? Because there's a lot of information available out there. People
Right.
have been resorting to WhatsApp, University, Instagram, just passing on the information, half baked information, I would say. So,
Right.
what's a truly effective well-being strategy in your view?
So I'm not going to add to those tidbits of information that are coming, because that would be just one more opinion or one more practice, like you said, which has maybe worked for me or whatever. But I'd like you to get down to the fundamentals of this. And that's always my approach, whether I'm coaching somebody or building on a product or whatever. It came from my grandfather, Pulkit. I was in my high school when I was staying with my grandparents because my dad was posted overseas. So I used to go with my physics problems to my granddad. He was an engineer, and he always seemed to have all the time in the world. Even though he was working till his very last day, he was. Anyhow, that's a different story. But for grandkids, somehow they always have time. So anyhow, he would never give me a formula. And so consequently, I had a very difficult time with formulas because formulas are meant to speeden up things. But he would go back to fundamentals and build up from there. What is the mass? What is the direction? What is the speed? Then you arrive at velocity, then you arrive at momentum, and stuff like that. And going back to fundamentals, what we got to understand is that we are the body, mind, and spirit. We are highly connected with body. A little cut on the lip, and your entire attention goes there. Or if you have a little extra cut on the finger, the kind of thing that happens when you have a little skin peeled off over here. And oh, your mind tells you, oh, I can't type today, and like all the emails are pending that day, and oh, you're just sitting there and swallowing your self pity, because that mind then drives the body. Sorry, the body then drives the mind, and the mind is not able to think of anything else. And that's about where we stop. We don't really know how to work with the mind. We do understand that, okay, it's happy, it's sad, it's angry, it's fearful, whatever. But what do you do about it? Can you put a band-aid on your anger? No, you can't. So, whereas you can put a band-aid on this finger or put some glycerin on the lip and get on with things if you have that positive mental attitude. But usually we get sucked in, and the mind, we're not able to control that much at all anyway. The spirit goes one level higher. So if we know that much about the body, we know that little about the mind, and we know this little about the spirit. But the solution lies in expanding spirit. 2,500 years ago, when the Buddha was around, and I say this because from my background, I kind of appreciate that philosophy and the way of life because it is so practical. And it also aligns us with this spirit, with energy. Because those days when, and I say this to any of our listeners who's probably got kids and is worried about, kids remembering things, kids focus, ADHD, we've got so many labels these days for all these things. Go back to fundamentals. If the spirit connection is strong, those followers of Buddha were able to memorize his sutras, 84,000 of them, for 300-400 years before they started writing them down in Ashoka's time. 300-400 years. Yeah. Did I say 1,000? Yeah. So this was an oral transmission. And to have the mental capacity, the memory, and the focus to be able to imbibe so much of intense knowledge and not need to write it down, but just pass it from generation to generation is saying a lot of that energetic connection and what having your connection to spirit can do for you. Now, spirit can build mind, which is what this example demonstrates. And mind can then build a body, which a lot of modern experimentation has proved, right? Affirmations are mind building body. Psychotherapists, for God's sake, are mind building the body, right? So, Louis Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, is all about the mind body connection. But who builds the mind? Well, spirit builds the mind. And who builds the spirit? This connection with the divine spirit, the universal spirit, is what builds spirit. So building that is fundamentally important. And therefore, coming to practicals, what I practice and what my WhatsApp post is going to be is practice Qigong. Because Qigong is a 4,000-year-old Taoist practice which connects body, mind, and spirit. Yoga, which has worked very well for you, as you said, connects body and mind on a very regular basis because the respiration is governed by the mind, and your mind is sitting on the respiration, and the body you're moving. But what you're not doing is visualizing the energy movements. So that aspect of visualizing comes in Kundalini yoga, for example, where the mind, body, spirit are connected. But it's a very high yoga. But Qigong starts at that level. Qigong starts at the mind, body, spirit connection. Therefore, you expand your spirit. Therefore, you stay energized, whether it's 10 in the morning or 10 in the night. And it's really powerful. It keeps you mentally, physically, and spiritually healthy. Qigong practices can be learned. I learned this, so anybody can.
This brings me to understand one thing, Sandeep. You talked about Qigong, we discussed about yoga, I shared my experience around that. And you also talked about a time when things were left to move at their own pace. Nobody was trying to act as a catalyst to accelerate them.
Hmm.
But with every, passing year, initially it was decade, then it was half a decade, then it was a year, and now it's probably every passing day, more or less.
Mhm.
Things are being accelerated a lot, and the
Yes.
expectations are surpassing the humanly possible timelines.
Yes.
So, what I really want to understand is, since we are talking about stress management, anxiety, and everything, and with all the new labels that have come up, very significantly in last 3 4 years,
Yeah.
is AI and the technical developments that's happening around us, reducing our mental resilience.
Very, very good question. Very timely question. And thanks for that. So, why is stress going up? Because that is the classical definition of stress. Simply put, when the demands are more than the resources. When the physical demands are more than the physical resources, we are physically stressed. When the financial demands are more than the financial resources, we're financially stressed. When even the spiritual demands are greater than the spiritual resources, we're not motivated, but we are asked to attend a certain spiritual program, let's say, we are spiritually stressed. So you can be stressed in all six dimensions of living. And as the timelines are crunching from, like you said, what happens in a month is now happening in a minute, the stresses are that much higher, the demands are that much higher. Now, all these labels of ADHD and all are because those distractions are happening every nanosecond. And the mind is not programmed for that. We're not built for that. So, when AI is going to be agentic completely and doing things for us, what we have to understand is the time of evolution that we're sitting in right now is when we are developing agentic and physical AI, where the robots are going to start doing what we're doing, folding the clothes and stuff like that, everything. The time right now is when we are deciding what decision making capacity to give that agent. And if we don't decide with a high level of consciousness on the repercussions, we would be living movies like Blade Runner and iRobot, where all governance and all functioning would be operated by humanoids. Now, one way of looking at that is that that's evolution. What Homo sapien is to the Neanderthal. The Neanderthal is now replaced by the Homo sapien, and the humanoid, or whatever name we're going to give that, is natural evolution. It doesn't matter that it was created by a program. It just matters that it was created and it rules the world. And Matrix 1, 2, 3. But today we have to be very conscious about the level at which we're developing these agents. Tomorrow, what we have to also plan for today is that when these agents, suppose we build them with the right consciousness, are driving things where the final decision making is left to the Yodas of the world. There is some wisdom in whatever is going on, but we humans are left with a lot of time. I mean, if somebody's folding my clothes, also there's nothing I have to do, right? So practically, so what do I do with that time? And moving into that space today would be a good way of planning the future out. So I'm not sure whether I'm sort of getting to your expected answer of where AI and stress are going. But what I'm saying is that we are going to be reversing this by creating a lot more time for ourselves and not knowing what to do with it. And when we don't know what to do with our time, that itself is stressful because too much time and too little to do. So it's very stressful. So we've got to start planning on what do we do with the time that's going to be coming on when all your mopping, cleaning, and of course all your office work is automated anyway and done much better than what you were doing it anyway. So what are you going to do? So that's where going back to ancient Oriental wisdom is a damn good idea. Not just Oriental. I mean, you just go back to the core wisdom practices that are the same in lots of schools of thought, from Mayans to Egyptians to Judaism to, of course, Taoism and the Vedic forms. It's all about that connection, that spirit connection, that connection with universal spirit that gives you greater capacity to envision more, to fulfill yourself and live at your highest potential. And your highest potential is not about governing a machine. Your highest potential is about gaining liberation. To any of those listeners who understand that, that's what we've got distracted from as a society. It's not those video games that are distracting us. It is, in fact, in Buddhism, there are these three poisons: the core poison, anger, which we understand, attachment, which we understand, and ignorance, which we don't understand. Ignorance is about your ignorance about why you're here. What the hell are you supposed to do? So the Taoists say it very simply, the Judas say it very simply, that there are only three things: there's the heaven, there's the earth, and there's you. And the idea is you be a pipe without blockages so that the universal consciousness can expand thanks to that iota that you contribute. But we think that our iota is in raising $1 trillion funding, and that is what we are here to do. But that is absolutely insignificant in the universal scheme of things.
I align with you, Sandeep, totally on this thought. And what really makes me curious more than what we'll do with that time is what will be the currency of that time. Because if we're not going to be working, agents are going to be working, what are we going to be exchanging for the different services and different goods that we purchase? That really makes me curious. And I believe that is going to lead us to something renew that's going to be there. And with this, I would like to really understand renewalism from you because you've been working on it for quite some time. We connected, I believe, in 2020, and you have been promoting renewalism for since that, having written 4 books already around it. So, and coming with a new concept altogether. So why don't you share a bit about what renewalism is and what are you working in it?
Thank you, Pulkit. For the benefit of listeners, Renewal is a book that was channeled to me. I do not take the credit for having written it. I am the scribe. I was sitting at my computer one fine day and this word popped into my head. I started typing. I didn't know what I was typing for the next 40 days. But at the end of 40 days, I had 240 pages in the computer. And then came the time to process what was written on those pages. And this was early 2020. And when I was processing, also in a sense editing, I found that this whole thing had been sort of dictated to me in three parts: renewal of the self, symbiotic renewal, and systemic renewal. And self renewal was about body, mind, spirit alignment. And I probably, since I'd been practicing that for a good 10 years at least, that could be something that, yes, these are habits that can help us renew ourselves, whether it's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., you're on top of your energy. Symbiotic renewal was probably not something that I was personally doing as such, but these are habits that help us relate better with each other and with the planet. And, habits like minimalism, for example, or cutting clutter, decluttering, or simple thing like taking a bag when you go out shopping. You take your cell phone anyway, but take a bag along with it, a foldable bag, because you will invariably come back with something, or if you don't, it just stays in your pocket. It's just like you didn't use your phone. But when you do shop for something, you got your own bag, so you reduce the bag footprint on the planet by one bag every time you go out. So stuff like that, simple stuff, is symbiotic renewal. And then systemic renewal was about renewing systems that have stopped serving us, but we've been too busy to notice that. And this included stuff like telecommuting, like online schooling, and other stuff, which then suddenly got imposed upon us. So while I was still editing that book, the lockdowns happened, and I said, man, these habits, and these are all personal habits, these habits have to see light of day before we regress. because these habits are being imposed upon us. For starters, you can't change a habit or incorporate a habit unless you're mindful about what you do. So, mindfulness, we were being pushed into mindfulness of our mask and mindfulness of physical distancing and mindfulness of clean hands and all that stuff by the coronavirus. And then into not going to the malls, not watching those movies, the minimalistic sort of life, getting by in a shirt and shorts, and that was symbiotic renewal. And suddenly, in my multi-story apartment, I found peacocks, for God's sake, in Delhi. Who's seen peacocks in Delhi in multi-story apartments? But we had blue skies after maybe 20 years in Delhi, and that was all systemic. This is symbiotic renewal. And then we were telecommuting, and then we were suddenly finding that we were very stressed because in 2 3 weeks, that was the demand, we had to do what we weren't prepared for, which we could have been prepared for in 2 3 years. So now, like you said, Pulak, what we are doing is we are in those 2 3 years post COVID, where we are encouraging organizations to look at embracing renewalism to create conscious cultures, and those conscious cultures will then drive systems which are processes, symbiotic renewal, which is purpose, like how do you relate to the planet? The triple bottom line gets affected very positively. And self renewal, which is about well being, which is about people. So all those necessary things that an organization must do to be future ready. And when I say future ready, I'm talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Because unless your people are geared to work alongside machines with the right consciousness, which we just talked about, unless your processes are geared to focus on the customer and drive customer satisfaction instead of driving just a process. As a culture, you're not using your culture to build your organization. So you start using your culture to build your organization. And what is building an organization? Getting and retaining customers. Why do organizations exist? Because of customers. And there's no other reason for them to exist. So the process aligns with the people, which then aligns with the purpose. What is it that you are here for, really? So, what is the value that you're adding to your customer? What is the value you're adding to the planet? Why do you exist? And if you can't answer those questions in a top level brainstorm, then there's no way that you're going to bring those correct answers to the rest of the organization. And we all know very well that you don't get the right answers if you ask the wrong questions. So we are here to create renewal cultures, which would then show tangibly how individual productivity goes up, how team performance goes up, and how organizational profitability goes up. Metrics which are measurable naturally and organically and sustainably. So that's what renewal and the renewalism movement is about. It's a movement, it's not a company. I'm looking at incorporating and empowering the leaders from various organizations who put this out in their organization and then create those cultures, and those cultures grow and grow. And so it just becomes a movement with a methodology and principles of its own.
Let's also look at renewalism from the lens of an HR plan
Mhm.
to implement it for the benefit of employees. But at the same time, that HR has to also be answerable to the board about the
Correct.
profitability, the impact of the activities being done. And let's assume that it's not just a tick box activity, but an organization really looking to make a difference.
Right.
So, what would be a response to NHR around that?
Oh, that's exactly what the HR is looking for, but they don't know that they're looking for it. Because HRs want to be on the boards, and HRs want to have a voice that truly drives the organization long term. But what you're talking about, that checkbox item, is what I call tactics. Now, multiple tactics don't make a strategy. But a strategy to build a conscious culture will lead to multiple tactics that are aligned. And when those multiple tactics are aligned over 3 to 5 years, the culture is organically built. So if a CHRO or the chief of L&D is listening and understands that with renewal, you've got a complete redefinition of L&D initiatives. You just need one initiative which incorporates that complete change and alignment of people, purpose, and process, which is actually the alignment of body, mind, and spirit, because people are the body of an organization. Purpose is the spirit of the organization, the driving spirit, and processes run at the back end, which is the mind of the organization. So just like when you align body, mind, and spirit of an individual, you have no stress. When you align people, purpose, and process of an organization, you have no organizational stress. Your individual KPIs are looking straight into organizational purpose. There is less conflict, there is less divergence, there is more team bonding, there is more sense of satisfaction and engagement at the end of the day, because people are doing what makes their hearts happy and leads to what the organization needs to achieve and do to keep the customers happy. So, why does an HR ever have to think about what initiatives are required and what is my strategic path to the board? It's here. It lies in thinking strategy and the tactics falling into place, aligning in place with that. Not thinking tactics and then saying that, well, I was to do 12 things, but I did 15 this year.
And you also talked about, during our discussion on renewal tourism. So, what's that about?
Well, thanks for touching upon that. This is the first interview that I'm giving on this combination of words, renewal tourism. And thank you for bringing it up, Pulkit. It's great to share confidences with you because you bring them out in public like that. So and this is a good time to do that, because be very open with my listeners over here that I often joke about this, that when people ask me, what do you do? I say, well, I work to create conscious corporate cultures. And then I add to that as the next line, and obviously, therefore, I don't have much work to do. Because that is quite the reality. There's a lot of lip service going on into conscious corporate culture. There's a lot of lip service going into well-being itself. There's a lot of lip service going into culture also. So when you bring all of this together, yes, we have amazing conversations. We have people's eyes lighting up at CXO levels, but it's not translating into giving us that 6 months in which we can show a habit change in a test group, right? That's not been happening for various reasons. And I'm not, this is not my complaint box. So that's not what I'm doing here. But I'm telling you the reality that unless you've got 6 months, you're not working on habits of even a test group, which could be about 5% of your organization, about 20, 25 people. That's our sweet spot. So if you're let's say a 400, 500 strong organization, that's what we're talking about. It's not been happening. And I realized, and not only in India, overseas as well. And that's when I realized that there are so many pressing priorities, those distractions, that this long-term thing needs very serious motivation, so to say, to do. So that's where I thought of what motivates people. And from my experience of working with clients and people generally, not just in the corporate world, but people in general, even in my Buddhist circles, for instance, what I found that across the world, what people are self-motivated by, what makes their eyes light up, is the idea. Especially when I'm, let's say, in Mexico and I say I'm from India, invariably the person, I mean, whether it's Mexico or Japan or New Zealand, it doesn't matter. The person would light up and say, I've been there, and they'd have a story to tell. Or they'd say that, wow, I always had that on my bucket list. Or they say, man, you guys are, everybody's talking about India. I must know what's going on in that business environment. Or they say stuff which is, that's not important what they're saying, but the sentiment generally is, yes, I want to be in India. I want to experience India. And we have experienced India with a lot of these foreigners, because my wife used to run a travel company, for that matter, a travel advisory. So we used to advise them on what to expect to enjoy India, because it's very easy to suffer India. And so every experience had been transformative. So now I'm combining these two things in one word or one phrase, like you used, renewal tourism, which is like an established category like medical tourism or spiritual tourism or gastronomic tourism, we understand. But renewal tourism is focused at bringing you initially to India, but later we could go probably to places like Sedona or places in China or places in, the number of spiritual centers all over the world, Ireland, everywhere. Starting with India, where I know and I can guarantee that you will go back renewed. You will go back with that transformation in just 2 weeks' time. So in 2 weeks, we're looking at a cookie cutter model where we've got 1 week where you sort of tick off the things that you can say in your coffee table conversations about what happened in India, the Taj Mahal and stuff like that, or Ayurveda or whatever. So we've got things happening in Kerala, we've got things happening in the north, or whatever. We've got that 1 week of a fixed circuit, and then 1 week where we're sitting together, not necessarily with any of our people. Our people are called the global wisdom workforce. The global wisdom workforce executes renewalism in the organizations over that 6 month period and then carrying over with their leadership over 5 years. But not necessarily sitting for a week with them, but you're sitting with somebody who's come from a spiritual space and understands how the transformation can best help this group. So this could be a mixed group of senior executives from different companies or a mixed group from the same company. We're looking at 6 to 10 people, but a renewal tour of this 2 weeks will leave them with that physical retreat kind of engagement over a week. That is transformative. And then when they go back, we are in a much better position to want them to extrapolate those new habits or those new ways of thinking, which they have experienced and distilled through them to their entire teams. And that's where renewal habits comes in as the initiative which it is designed to be, which is in any case executed online with the global wisdom workforce. So none of the renewalism initiatives requires us to travel, because if we travel and do it, then how do we empower their leaders to do it online? They may have offices in Paris and Manila and Colombo. And it's not necessary that they have to travel from Paris to Colombo just to execute the constructs of renewalism and build that culture. So if we do it that way with the test group, with those leaders, they would learn how to do it, and that's how the empowerment cycle goes on. So we would, look at these companies which are being represented by their senior leadership in the renewalism tours, in the renewal tours rather, and then take on the renewalism steps by way of workshops and group talks and executive coaching and renewal clubs and all of that, to create those interventions, empowering interventions over the next 6 months and then into years. So that's where renewal tourism has been seeded as an idea, and I'm still developing on it. We don't have the website as of this interview, but we're going to, because I have a vision for it, and I'm not sure how much to put on the website right now. The vision then eventually goes into this becoming a platform for companies who want to raise consciousness, and that's going to happen very fast, because once people get a hang of what a conscious culture can do to productivity and performance and profitability, oh man, I'm sure they're going to embrace it more than we can build the global wisdom workforce. But that's when we would need to create a platform where organizations wanting to experience renewal tourism and get onto that, and the facilitators all over the world, like I said, they could be in Israel, they could be in Ireland, they could be in Mexico, they could be in New Zealand, or they could obviously be in India, where we're starting. Those facilitators and these guys can sort of get hooked together like an Airbnb of renewal. So it's not just about staying, which an Airbnb is about. It's about the entire renewal tour, which sets you up in 2 weeks for being in the next level of the orbit.
Amazing, amazing. Uh, I've heard a similar, structure. I believe I shared with you offline as well when we were discussing. And since we're talking about enabling the global, demographics out there, the population, with the wisdom India has to offer, or with the space India has to offer, I met this gentleman called Mr. Mandar Apte. He has been working on a concept called From India with Love, where he brings a lot of people from the US and certain other parts of the globe. But where he started was bringing the victims of gun violence in the US to India to
Uh,
help them navigate that impact of that violence on their mind, body, and soul,
hmm,
just by taking them through different parts of India, the different flavors India has to offer in terms of the population segmentation. It really helped these people evolve and find themselves in a better place. uh, Mandar has
fantastic.
Mother has worked with a lot of UN core as well as UNESCO core groups, and been enabling things. So with your renewal tourism idea coming in, I believe that really required a mention, and I believe you can check out the work that he has been doing to further get that direction, to move forward with renewal tourism as well. I believe that's something. And
Maybe
if
you
you
can put his website in the in the description here as well,
sure,
and renewalism.com for listeners who want to take a look.
why not? Why not? Um, Sandeep, as we are, moving towards the conclusion of our conversation, help me understand how important is accountability for self in our wellness journey, because we often pawn off the onus to the situations,
Hmm.
people around us, but never take the accountability on ourselves. We are perfect for ourselves, so how do we really bring that accountability in picture and then navigate our wellness journey?
Correct, correct. Like the saying says, no, we are our best lawyers and others best judges.
Yeah.
So yeah, we defend whatever we our mind says, and that's where this mind being in the middle of body and spirit has a very powerful role to play, because it can literally water down the spirit and solidify the mind, the body. So we get stuck. Now, the more we connect with spirit, the more we allow energy to emanate around us and within us, the more supple our bodies get, the more our physical blocks, our diseases get cured. And the more our body starts giving feedback, the more our mind wants to listen to that. So, unless we're listening to what the body is saying, we are not on a self healing journey. So, our main accountability lies with ourselves, because we are our best doctors. We are our best diagnostics. We know what's wrong with us, but our mind won't acknowledge it, or our mind would want somebody else to say that, because then if it is not that, then we're not wrong, they're wrong. And that's a limitation of the mind, or a protective mechanism of the mind to keep us feeling good about ourselves, keep our ego intact, so to say. um, all spirituality talks of the same thing, that you got to bring the ego down. This ego mind, when that comes down, that's when everything else goes up in life. Money goes up, relationships go up, everything goes up, all six dimensions. So accountability is about uh, choosing to to challenge the ego, and making a contract with the ego, a contract that says that if you're challenged, step down, because there is wisdom in the body also that's doing the talking. So if the body is saying that you got to eat a certain thing, you got to actually connect with energy to recognize that wisdom of the body. Otherwise, it could be the mind. The ego is very capable of saying that, I need to have ice cream right now, and you think it's a body craving for ice cream. No, it's just the mind which is doing that, and it's very well camouflaging everything. So that said, Before you've got that connect with energy, before you've got that capacity to really listen to the body and differentiate, accountability externally is a good crutch. It's like, those cycling wheels, extra cycling wheels, the four-wheel cycles where you learn how to keep your balance. And that's where a coach comes in. So, being with a coach who you're paying for, which is the difference between a coach and a mentor would give you great advice and very useful, life changing stuff. But you don't pay them. And unless you're really committed to the mentor, or your mind is really committed to the mentor, because suddenly you might find that the mentor is doing certain things that go against your ethical grain or whatever. And everything that the person has said till then goes down. And who's the loser? You're the loser. Right. But if you've got a coach, you're paying money, you're exchanging energy because money is a form of energy which you're giving, and therefore what you get, you keep you prize. So keeping accountability with a coach is worth whatever you spend on that, because then that moves the needle for you and brings your mind to a level where you can start developing that inner power. And as we said, your inner power defines your outer reality. So as you get that inner alignment of body, mind, and spirit, you're powered to change whatever is happening in your six dimensions. And we go back to the metrics. You do the metrics now, and you do the metrics after a coaching program or after 3 months of conscious working with yourself, maybe using self renewal habits, and you'll see the changes in the parameters and the metrics.
Amazing. Before we conclude, Sandeep, my final question to you is, you have lived it all as per the Indian society. You have been through IIT, you have been through IIM, and you have had good salary, and you live in a society in one of the most posh areas of Gurgaon. So you have experienced it all. And for a lot of people out there, it's the ambition they carry with them, it's the aspiration they carry with them.
Yeah.
Now, and you have also taken that plunge, which often just people keep procrastinating, the Himalayan journey, as I just said in the starting of the podcast. How would you, I will not say advise, but what would you like to share with people out there to find a balance between having an ambition and then balancing it for their own wellness and well-being?
Guys, ambition is overrated. You have to have purpose. This whole ikigai business is gaining popularity because it is purpose. Simon Sinek is got so popular because he talks about starting with why, purpose. Purpose gives us energy. You know, why we became civilized, so to say, why we moved out of the caves and came into villages, was because we had a purpose of physical security. Otherwise, that elephant would stand in front of our caves, and uh, we wouldn't get food for the next 10 days because we couldn't go out. Stuff like that. So those were stressors. The elephant was bigger than our resources. So we had a purpose to create society. Then we started growing within the society. So we started having farms and all that. And the nature of how we started using energy changed. And then we started getting disconnected with our innate energy. Otherwise, that caveman would know exactly where the water is because he could sense it. That's an energetic connection. That's a sense. But then we started losing it from there. But why I'm saying this is because everything that we do, that purpose gives us the energy. Like, I'll give you another simple story. Uh, my mom had a knee problem, okay, that arthritis and all that. And it used to come up in spurts. Like suddenly she would have a week where something would go wrong in the knee and it was really painful that week. And then something would happen, maybe some massages or natural healing or whatever, and it would go away. So it just so happened that this was one of those instances where just that morning this pain came up. And that afternoon, my sister had an accident in Bombay, and we were in Delhi in Gurgaon. And she had this definite purpose that I've got to go there because, sister, sisters got kids and small kids at that time. And she just took the flight, went there. None of us were able to go with her, but she said, "No, no, I'll do it," and all that. And 2, 3 days later, when we were talking on the phone, when everything had stabilized, I asked, "Mom, and how's your knee?" He said, "What knee?" He totally forgotten. She was going up and down the hospital stairs and filling out forms and getting medicines and all sorts of things. But that attack was just started. But because you have that deep sense of purpose that I've got to take care of my daughter and I'm the only one who can do it, you get that energy to fight physical pain. Now, why am I saying all this and how does it relate with your question? Is because it's not about ambition to do something, it's about the purpose why you're doing it. That will drive you, that will align everything for you. And if you don't know how to arrive at your purpose, then we'll put a link down here again. It's on my blog at sandeepnath.com, where you identify your purpose. And where I differ from Ikigai in what you will see here, I mean, I wrote this blog maybe about 15 years ago, before the Ikigai book was even conceived, I think. But it is just one article. But it's got three aspects, three pillars. Ikigai's got a fourth one where he says that it should be commercially, whatever words they use, there should be a market for it. But I don't believe that your purpose should have a market. Gandhi's purpose did not have a market, a commercial market, right? Mandela's purpose did not have, Mother Teresa's purpose did not have a commercial market. Insofar as Steve Jobs is concerned, he just had 1,000 songs in a pocket. He didn't have a commercial market for it. He created it because he tickled the imagination with it, right? Mother Teresa could have tickled the commercial imagination and got a lot of people paying money for it. I could be tickling people's imagination with creating conscious cultures and getting all the members of the global wisdom workforce who are executing this to make pots of money as coaches. And well worth it because it's a very worthy exchange that they're giving. But they're all driven by the purpose. At least the global wisdom workforce is driven by the purpose of enabling, executing, and empowering renewalism habits. So, what's your purpose? Unless you get a clarity on that, ambition is overrated. And that then is my advice to people who are looking for what to do, because if you want to get into this house in Gurgaon and whatever else you mentioned, Pulkit, which I've just been very fortunate, I'd say, and I'm very grateful for it. I would quote a line from my own book. My latest book is The Emptiness of Success. And to quote a line from there, if you chase money, you don't give money the opportunity to chase you. Just don't chase money. And you'll find it running behind you. People are keen to pay me for speaking for them. Today wasn't the case when I was a stressed out chief executive of a consulting company in 2005. I was hustling my ass off. It's not about hustle. It's about the same thing, strategy. It's not about tactics. It's about what's your long-term vision, and then you get things to align along it. So that's applies to companies, applies to L&D departments, applies to individuals.
That line might be just few words, but holds a lot of weight with it. And somewhat that I can relate to it. Over the last 2 years, since I've restarted my marketing business, we have become very particular, and we have seen the difference. And I've personally seen the difference in myself, where I'm now very less stressed out.
Yeah.
I am able to find myself in lesser anxious scenarios. There are some decisions which often go wrong that lead to the further anxiety and stress. But yeah, where if I would have been, I would say out of 10 days, I was stressed and anxious 9 or 11 days out of 10. Today, I can proudly say that those are reduced to just 2 or 3. Yes, I totally agree that the purpose really needs to be, found. I would say I don't have 100% clarity on my purpose so far, but yes, whatever it's coming to me, through the Almighty and through the spiritual practices that I go for, uh, I'm just going with the flow now.
Correct.
And even just recently, I had a stressful moment I shared with you. one a day or two I was little and even today it has a little subtle impact, but yes, the way I'm reducing that impact of that stress and anxiety on me is I'm leaving it to the flow. I'm just doing the bit I can and whatever, ensuring that I am aligned to ethics, I'm aligned to the best of my capabilities.
Correct.
Rest, it's for the flow to manage things and for the other person to be reciprocating the same ethics and communication and trust that I have. So I can control my actions, not the other person's. So let's leave it to the flow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now that you mentioned flow so many times, I'm tempted to share with the listeners that this book I just quoted from is titled The Emptiness of Success. I think I mentioned that, but the subtitle is How the Presence of Absence Brings You Fulfillment, Freedom, and Flow. So, fulfillment is like at the physical level, freedom is at the mind level, and flow is at the spirit level. So, getting into the flow is what we talk about, and how, as a professional in various professions, you can create that state of flow, you can create that alignment, is what one of the chapters exclusively delves into.
Amazing, amazing. I'm going through the book, not being able to go through it completely, just because of a lot of things. But
Yep.
yes, once I complete, I will get back to you and share my experience.
Thank you
So
so much for reading through, Pulkit. And thank you so much for this interview. It was really a joy to share all this. I congratulate you if you're still listening. And please know that we started with a very practical thing to do: identify where you are on the stress matrix, and we ended also on a very practical thing, or I think we are ending of identifying your purpose. And we'll share both links below, and do both the exercises because you'll do yourself a great favor. And looking forward to hearing from you guys if this has helped you. Thank you.
thanks, Sandeep. Thanks a lot. That was an eye opener, and I would say really amazing conversation to have. I really enjoyed it. And for everyone listening this episode, I believe this episode wasn't just about new strategies or cool sounding retreats. It was more about practical information and a reminder that our body knows how to heal. Allow it time, stop interrupting it. And whether you're navigating a health condition or just waking up tired every day, remember it's time to pause, rethink, and renew. And if you're finding yourselves something is on your mind, you're not able to get it out, finding it difficult to share, remember, We Are Listening is an anonymous mental health initiative. You can find the description in the link in the description below. Just go to the link, vent out, and our volunteers would be more than happy to support you, respond to you only if you require the response, and vent out anonymously and just feel that lightness after that. Let those stress and worries be vented out onto the platform and you can be free. Until then, please stay tuned and remember, we are listening. Thanks a lot.